I'm running a one-man company called Samuraism, but actually it's not about APIs. So today I'm here as an individual developer, and I'm an open source developer, and I'm a founder of a project called Twitter4j. It's a library for the Twitter API, and of course, everybody loves Twitter, and developers love Twitter. And the library is for Java developers, and Java developers want to integrate their applications, services, want use the library. So there are so many services and applications out there using my library. It's because Twitter is very simple, and what they done good about the API is that they expose the service itself through API. You can do anything about Twitter using the API. There have been so many APIs around there, but those functions are limited. But with Twitter API, you can do anything. You can even create yet another Twitter-like service using Twitter API. That's a huge differentiator, I think. Calling using web APIs is very easy because it's just an HTTP request and response thing. And nowadays, of course, REST API is dominating. There used to be web service, XML-based web services, but those services are kind of extincting because they're complex enough. It's called SOAP, simple object, blah blah blah, but it's not actually simple. But REST APIs are simple, not really. REST APIs are simple to play with, but to call or use those APIs, you need to understand the request and response schema. Ironically, it used to be easier in some way with SOAP or web service because there were WSDL or XML schema for those services, and you can programmatically analyze the request and response schema. But with REST APIs, you need to find the request and response schema by reading through the documentation. And developers hate to read and write documentation. So that's kind of problematic for them. So that's why I created Twitter4j. Yes, I tried a little bit, and because I developed Twitter4j, Twitter hired me and found that they embed Apigee's console in the developer side, and it works like a charm. One thing is, of course, provide good documentation, provide good and complete documentation. There's so many messy documentation out there, like they have you have to provide this parameter and parameters, and you get this response. But you can get the structure of those parameters and the responses. But with Apigee's console, you can easily understand what the structure is like. So one thing is the documentation, and the second thing is I suggest those providers to provide SDK or library as well. In that sense, Twitter is depending on open source community. They don't provide official SDK. Instead, they encourage developers to build their own library and encourage competitions. Well, those SDK are supposed to be easy to use, of course, and I try to make it much. I'm trying to make the SDK as easy as possible, and there are many ways to design libraries, programs, but I'm trying to make the library less sophisticated. I don't. It's not a rocket science, you know. You can design and put some swanky object design patterns, but I try to remove them as much as I can, because Twitter 4J is between the Twitter API and developers, and there are so many developers using the Twitter 4J, and those developers are not expert, of course. Not every users are expert. So if the library is highly designed and too much so sophisticated, people could get may feel difficult. In the real world, what you want to get is the interface. But to get the interface, you must have the factory, or to get the factory, you have to build a configuration builder or something like that. There are so many steps, but I hate that. There could be one only concrete constructor to get the interface or something like that. Yeah.